Thank you very much, Lascan Corla. Minister, as you know, the quality of personnel serving in our permanent defence forces is a huge asset for our country. We see that in the work of members at home and abroad, often in difficult and dangerous circumstances. The decline in the serving numbers has to be a source of concern to all of us. We need to get the numbers back up in excess of 10,000. I understand that around 9,000 serving members was the number we were given towards the end of December. Minister, as you know, that's not a sufficient number to enable our Army and our Air Corps and our Navy to carry out its mandated duties, and there's an urgent need to have the numbers enlisted increased.
Minister.
I propose to take 10 and 14 together, Lascan Corla. Of the 31st of January, the latest figures available to the whole-time equivalent strength PDF stood at just under 9,000 personnel. There are significant career opportunities available at both enlisted and officer level for eligible individuals who wish to have a rewarding and positive career to serve in service of the state. The Permanent Defence Forces continues to offer excellent opportunities for serving personnel and for new entrants. In order to return to the agreed strength of 9,500, the PDF personnel recruitment continued through 2018. This encompassed 2 general service recruit competitions and competitions for cadets, apprentices and instrumentalists, along with other intake of direct entry streams. This has resulted in 611 personnel inducted in 2018. This figure does not include the 15 members of the PDF who were awarded a cadetship last year. Recently, I met with senior civil and military officials to review recruitment plans for 2019, and I can confirm that, subject to further consideration, similar recruitment competitions to those held in 2018 will take place in 2019. At this point, it is not possible to predict precise numbers that will be recruited, but it is anticipated that it will be in the region of some 800 personnel. The military authorities have advised that targeted media campaigns using social and traditional media, cinema and print will continue to form important elements of their recruitment drive. A variety of recruitment initiatives will also be undertaken throughout the year, including outreach events at local and national level. Additionally, the Defence Forces will accept general service recruitment applications outside the 2 normal competition periods. Some specialist posts, such as pilots and air traffic controllers and certain technicians, are presenting challenges for recruitment and retention, and I have previously acknowledged the fact that this is reflective of the current economic circumstances and attractive job opportunity in the private and commercial semi-state sectors. The level of training and experience gained by members of the Defence Forces make them very attractive to private sector employers. The Defence Forces are not unique in this regard, and this is experienced by other parts of the public service and by other military organisations internationally. A range of alternative recruitment approaches are being developed aimed at addressing such vacancies at specialist areas. A scheme has been introduced which permits former members with specialist skills to re-enter the Permanent Defence Force, and arrangements are in train to provide a similar scheme for former enlisted personnel. Currently, there is direct entry provision for those with professional qualifications, which is utilised for the recruitment of medical officers and engineers. A working group is examining the scope for greater use of such direct entry requirements for certain specialist positions. The Public Service Pay Commission is further examining the issues of recruitment and retention of specialist personnel within the PDF. When the Public Service Pay Commission reports its findings, it will be considered at that point. The Government is committed to retaining the capacity of the Defence Forces to operate effectively across all roles to undertake the tasks laid down by Government both at home and overseas.
Deputy.
Thank you, Lascan Corla. Thank the Minister for his reply. Minister, it's disappointing to note that even in the month of December the numbers declined in our Permanent Defence Forces. And Minister, you will recall that at the PD4 conference last October, those members, I would highlight it there, how large numbers of soldiers, sailors and Air Corps staff were buying themselves out of the Defence Forces because they were unhappy with pay and conditions. As we know, PD4 have been very good, strong advocates, reasonable advocates on behalf of their members, and I know, Minister, from talking to them that they are very anxious that the whole area of pay and conditions that's improved as rapidly as possible. Minister, an enlistment figure, a serving personnel number of less than 10,000, that's stretching our army to carry out its mandated duties. And Minister, it's absolutely essential that you have numbers increased in 2019. Minister, unfortunately, there will be extra requirements on our Permanent Defence Forces back again in the south of Ulster and along the border. And unfortunately, none of us want to see checkpoints up again. But regardless of what outcome there is to Brexit, and we sincerely hope that there is an agreement between the British Government and the European Union, there will be additional responsibilities on our permanent defence forces.
Minister.
Thank you very much, Laskin Corla, and I take the concerns that Deputy Smith has raised with me. But let me state and address that the EU and the UK have both recognised that the open border on the island of Ireland has been essential to the peace and to the full implementation of the Good Friday Agreement, and there is no planning for infrastructure at the border. In the normal course, the Defence Forces carry out analysis and background research into contingencies, and this is no surprise when you spoke about members of the Defence Force returning to the border. Absolutely, that is not the case, and that's not been envisaged whatsoever. In the context of security, any research in relation to the border or otherwise internal of the Defence Forces, I think it's important that we do carry out due diligence. But let me state, Deputy, in around the pay and condition that you have raised, that the Public Service Pay Commission is looking at this specific issue, that there has been a joint military and civil submission that went into the Pay Commission in December of 2018, and I'm hopeful that we'll have an outcome of that in the first quarter or very early the second quarter of this year, 2019.
We're running out. I'll take a supplementary, Deputy Smith.
Thank you, Laskin Corla. Minister, I assume from what Taoiseach said the other day that in the context of contingency planning in relation to the outcome of Brexit, that every agency of the state would be doing some prudent contingency planning, and I assume that that's underway with the Permanent Defence Forces as well. Minister, I never want to see a checkpoint again. I grew up with it. When the Good Friday Agreement was signed, I consigned that to history in my own mind, as I said to you at committee as well. But Minister, I think there has to be a review in regard to the army infrastructure in the border region, regardless of Brexit. I argued vehemently with one of your predecessors as Minister for Defence in relation to the closure of Dún na Níl barracks in Cavan at that time. That was the most modern barracks in Europe. It was the only purpose-built army barracks in our state. It was the most efficient military installation, and unfortunately it was closed. Now the two military installations along the border are Aiken Barracks in Dundalk and Finner Camp in South Donegal. Minister, regardless of Brexit, there should be a review of the military infrastructure in the central border area. So there should. Thank you, Akan Corla.
Yes, are you on this as well?
Minister, even though you can't even reach the establishment level of 9,500, do you accept that there is a need to look at even increasing that just to carry out the existing tasks and duties of the Defence Forces, and also to looking at otherwise you're overstretching the men and women to breaking point, and then the need kind of to go beyond the establishment figure, also to address part of the problems that you identified earlier on when answering me of the Working Time Directive.
Minister. My priority is to make sure we get back up to 9,500, and we have a full budget there to reach that strength of 9,500 provided by government. Going back to Deputy Smith, I take your views on board, of course, and I repeat the words of what the Taoiseach has said earlier this week or last week. Of course, there's prudent planning going on in and around Brexit, but all agencies of the state and organisations of the state, and I'm only repeating exactly what he would have said in the past and that all government ministers would have stated previously. It is my priority, Deputy, to make sure that we get back up to 9,500. There are a number of issues that in and around recruitment that I want to do. I have asked the department to look at a whole review of recruitment, and it's something that I will prioritise my own for 2019 that we will look at that, and we'll have a review of recruitment. But I want to make sure that that happens during 2019. There hasn't been one carried out I understand, in a long number of years. But my priority and the organisation's priority of the civil and military management is to make sure that we get back up to 9,500 personnel. I think it is so important that we get back up to that number. And let me state that there is a full budget there, fully budgeted, to get back up to 9,500 personnel.
Okay.